Yo, and welcome to another epic tale with Full Circle Kung Fu, where we'll read the legends of martial arts and discuss the moral meaning and philosophy of why they've been passed down for so many years. And we'll share our own personal experiences related to them as well. But if you've had your own experience and would like to let me know down in the comments below, I would love to hear your epic tales and discuss the greatness that is you. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of your favorite hot beverage, and let our journey into martial arts begin. Today's story is The Mind is a Sword. Miyamoto Musashi, at his death, was considered the greatest sword fighter in the history of Japan. He never lost a fight in a contest with another sword fighter. He also authored the Book of Five Rings, a strategy manual still widely read today. Once again, the story is The Mind is a Sword. The young Miyamoto Musashi was a good swordsman, no doubt about that. But on the day he met Sejiro, Musashi was still young and largely untested. Sejiro, on the other hand, was one of the greatest swordsmen in the entire country. His reputation as both a teacher and a ruthless fighter had grown in more than 20 years he had been fighting. Musashi, who was only 19 years old, had issued a challenge and was going to fight him at sunrise. As Musashi roamed the town the day before the fight, he went over in his mind everything he knew about Sejiro, his personality and his strategy. He knew that Sejiro had a fiery temperament and the fast, hard techniques to match. He easily maimed or killed opponents in the past, yet Musashi believed he could win. If he could keep his wits about him, he could win. Musashi stopped at a noodle shop. Bowing politely to the shopkeeper, he asked for a bowl of soba. Leaning against a narrow counter, he ate the noodles. When he finished, he handed the bowl back to the shopkeeper. "Come see me fight," he said. "I'll be fighting Sejiro Sensei tomorrow morning in the field on the north end of town. Come watch and tell your friends." All afternoon he roamed the village, asking people what they knew about Sejiro, inviting them to the duel. "Come watch me fight Sejiro Sensei," he said to the innkeeper from whom he purchased an empty sake bottle. "Tomorrow morning in the field on the north end of town." The next morning Musashi rose well before dawn, paid his bill at the inn, and left for the field on the north end of town. Sejiro too was busy readying himself. At his dojo, accompanied by his students, he checked his equipment. Carefully he inspected his sword, handling the blade with a polishing cloth. In a straight line before him, his students knelt, watching their master's every move. Sejiro sheathed his sword and tied it carefully to his belt, bowing to his senior student. Sejiro appointed him second, his assistant, the man who would help end his life should he be mortally wounded. When all was ready, he turned his attention to his students. "A duel is not a mere matter of fighting," he said to them. "It is a matter of honor. A true warrior meets an enemy with quiet courage. The way he conducts himself on the field of battle is the measure of his worth as an honorable human being." With those words, he strode out the door to meet Musashi. Sejiro, followed by his second and his students, made his way across the village to the end of town. The sun had been up for almost an hour. Sejiro figured that it was proper that the young upstart Musashi wait for him. As he rounded a corner and looked out over the field, he saw that a crowd had gathered. "Musashi," he thought disgustingly. "He doesn't even have the decency to realize that a duel is not a circus." The crowd cheered Sejiro as he entered their midst. Sejiro raised his chin and tried to ignore them. He looked around, and Musashi was nowhere to be seen. "Where is he?" he whispered gruffly to his second, who had arranged the time and place. "I don't know, Sensei," his second replied. "He said he would be here at sunrise." "Well, I don't see him, do you?" Sejiro's voice rose almost to a shout. His students took a few steps back. They all knew their teacher's anger far too well. People in the crowd began to whisper between themselves. A laugh rose from somewhere near the back. Sejiro's face was red with anger. I'm not waiting for some young upstart who thinks he can arrive anytime he wants to, Sejiro bellowed. He has insulted me with his tardiness. He turned to leave. Sejiro! A voice rose from the middle of the crowd. Sejiro, where have you been? I've been here since before sunrise. A man swaggered forward, elbowing his way through the crowd, tossing aside an empty sake bottle. It was Musashi. Sejiro turned to face him. Musashi's clothes were damp and wrinkled, and his belt was not a katana but a bokken, a wooden practice sword. Sorry about the mess, Musashi said, brushing some dry grass from his lapel. I didn't want to miss the fight, so I slept out here last night. He tucked a loose strand of hair behind his ear and grinned. You ready? Sejiro's eyes flared with anger. You insult me with your dirty clothes and your poor attitude. Then perhaps you would like to challenge me to a duel, Musashi replied, still grinning. Back up, Sejiro ordered the crowd, swinging his arms in a wide arc. Back up, I said! Musashi moved in close, his hand on the handle of his bokken. His eyes were calm and steady. The noise of the crowd seemed to drop away as Musashi brought his mind to focus on Sejiro and Sejiro alone. With a roar, Sejiro drew his sword. The anger shot from his eyes. Musashi saw that his plan had worked. Sejiro had let his anger get the best of him. His anger was making him tense, and his tenseness was making him slow. The smallest decrease in speed could give Musashi the edge he needed. He drew his bokken. Sejiro sliced at him furiously. Musashi slipped the attack and brought his bokken up under the old man's chin. The wood cracked into his jaw, and the great Sejiro fell to the ground. Musashi checked to make sure his opponent would not soon rise. He slid his bokken into his belt and brushed the dust and grass from his clothes. He bowed deeply, bowed politely to Sejiro's second, and bowed again to his students. He straightened his shoulders and walked with dignity through the crowd. So that's the story of Miyamoto Musashi. So, what's some of the key points that really stuck out to you in this story? So, hey, Eli, just showing up. So you got a new haircut. Looks good. So, today's story was Miyamoto Musashi about him fighting against a guy named Sejiro. You get the basic gist, I guess. But what are some of the major points that really stuck out to y'all in the story? Anyone? No. Come on, speak up. Come on.
I don't know.
Oh, okay, well then say I don't know. It's fine.
What about how anger is a negative emotion that hurts you rather than helps you?
Anger, yeah. Anger being anger can end up is just a bad thing most of the time. If you end up getting angry, it can harm you in a fight. It can end up harming you in life. A lot of times, it makes people not feel very good about you. I mean, you saw his students. His students were basically like afraid of him because he had a short temper, right? So, I mean, do you really want people to know you for your short temper? Yeah, I don't think so. That's not usually the way you want people to think of you or remember you. So, but the guy was well known for it. So, and he was one of the better swordsmen in the country. But because of that probably helped him get to that status. But what's another big point that anyone heard from the story really stuck out or was big moral?
Making assumptions.
Yeah, making assumptions to that you're talking about Sejiro making assumptions about Musashi.
Yeah,
right?
He made an assumption he was late, made an assumption based on his dress, that he was unpreparedness, disrespectful.
Yeah.
And all of that clogged up his ability to be able to think clearly about what was in front of him.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. I think that was.
Musashi studied his opponents.
Yeah.
He knew the weaknesses.
Hmm. Well, he knew that he was going into a fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you have the time to go into a fight, why wouldn't you prepare for it?
Right.
Knowing your opponent's strategies and how they do it. I mean, like, that's how people in professional fighting do it. They watch their opponent's past videos and they study them and watch them repeatedly, trying to pick up what their main strategies are whenever they're fighting and things. This is very common to do, but I mean, that brings up another point. Sejiro was extremely, like, he was too much about himself. He was trying, he just pretty much figured this upstart is he's challenging me, great Sejiro, you know, I don't need to prepare that much for it. As long as I'm warmed up, I'll be fine, you know. And he has to wait for me, kind of a thing, and yeah, he was assuming things about Musashi, but I always thought that was kind of funny with this story because, you know, Sejiro was recognized as one of the greatest sword masters during that time, and then Miyamoto Musashi is now one of the greatest sword fighters in history.
By doing instead of living on reputation.
Yeah.
By getting it done.
Yeah, because I remember reading through at least most of the Book of Five Rings. I can't remember if I've read through the whole thing, but I think the story of him actually making that book, he went up into the mountains and he just wanted to have peace and quiet so that he could write his thoughts down without anyone interrupting him. So he ended up creating the Book of Five Rings. But it's a great book to read if any of y'all haven't read it before. It's a difficult read because it's almost like whenever you read the Bible in a lot of ways, because it can be kind of dry at times. But